welcome to the 15th of December and another window in our TooFatLardies festive advent calendar. This time we've got Nick, who's talking about the inspiration he derives from walking ground in battlefields and other military situations, and how that's inspired him to write wargames rules and other parts of the wargaming hobby. So I hope you've got your boots on for a good stride through the countryside and through urban areas as well, because here's Nick talking about the inspiration he's gained from many trips of that sort. Take it away, Nick.
The single biggest thing that I've missed during the last almost 2 years of coronavirus restrictions is walking the grounds of the battlefields of Europe. This is something we talk about quite a lot on the Oddcast, or at least we used to, when accessing the battlefields was something that could easily be achieved. These days, whilst it is, or at least was before Omicron, becoming something that's slowly becoming possible again, the restrictions and testing regimes of different countries make it less than straightforward. It's just really too difficult at the moment to go and visit these sites. All of which is a shame, because prior to COVID, walking the ground was never easier. And I really appreciate that now. Availability of maps and sources and books including details on the lie of the land that you're walking, such as the excellent Battleground series by Pen and Sword, mean that the modern battlefield walker can arrive with good sources, which might be in paper form but could equally be in electronic format. And how useful is that to turn up with everything you need on an iPad or on a phone, or maybe even on a laptop. Certainly the ability to add individual location markers to Google Maps makes orienteering around the battlefield so easy that you need nothing more than basic map reading skills to find your way. And I noticed that I use the term battlefield walker instead of battlefield tourist, which is a term that I hear quite a lot. To my mind, at least, I'm not a tourist when I'm exploring the battlefields. I'm on the ground not to enjoy myself. Instead, the enjoyment is a byproduct of the work that needs to be carried out to identify, to find, to seek out, and then understand a location that a week or so ago might just be a paragraph in a book. The research that goes into battlefield visits serves a real purpose. It inspires the games that we play. The very process of that research means that you seek out additional sources, read multiple accounts, study as many period maps, photos, aerial photos and war diaries that you can get your hands on. Of course, what this really means is that you become even more knowledgeable about the action before you even set foot on the ground. And this is really important. I don't think you can do too much of that research, because whilst the process of battlefield walking is one of the most inspiring ways I can spend my time, it's also one of the most frustrating if you stand on a location and suddenly realise that you haven't read enough and that you're still confused. Unless you are confident of your sources, battlefields can present misleading information. Without that extra detail, that extra research, you risk missing out on those little locations that remain unchanged. Or you drive over those river crossings or terrain features that we go past so blindly on the modern roads, but that were, on the day of the action, so crucial in the way that the day unfolded. So for that reason, the depth of reading and investigation that battlefield walking involves, it stimulates my gaming. There are, of course, a number of really superb battlefield guides. People who will take you on a tour of the fields of France, Flanders, and other places. Some of whom are friends of the Oddcast, and they can lead you on a superb tour of a battlefield. These people, of course, have done all the hard work and can present to you a thorough and really well presented experience that allows you to get a great feel of the action. Now, it sounds like I'm on their marketing department, and it's worth commenting that at this point that some of these guys have also pasted some of their tours on YouTube during the pandemic, which has been fascinating. And although really interesting, I find it still quite hard to watch, because they ram home the frustrations of not being able to stand on the ground for yourself. And for me, whilst organised tours are great, there's no replacing the reward that comes with finding a key location under your own steam. It's like climbing a mountain. The hard work is part of the endeavour. It's part of the reward. Taking a helicopter to the top feels a bit like cheating. Over the years, in company very often with Richard and Sid and others, we've walked many European battlefields, but none at all in the USA, which is something I'm very keen to resolve just as soon as it becomes practical and affordable to do so. Again, we're lucky to have a network of great contacts through the large community who we know would love to help us find our way around some key and really fascinating places. So, favourite battlefields is a question then, isn't it? Well, there's something special about standing on what remains of the ridge at Waterloo, or wandering through Hougoumont, or walking the ground at Passchendaele or the Somme. But for me, it's the smaller battlefields that can have deep meaning. I love, for instance, walking the causeway at La Fière, just west of St Mary-Église, or the fields north of the town where Turner Turnbull and the men of the 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment had their D-Day fight with the Germans pushing south from Montbourg. Les Attaques and Coulomb, two very small places just on the outskirts of Calais. The scene of nothing more than a skirmish during the defence of Calais makes a brilliant detour if you're ever touring that part of France. Not very far at all from the ferry terminal, in fact. Still in France, the town of Mortagne, scene of a fierce German counterattack, is also well worth investigating. More recently, though, our walks around Arnhem have dominated. A few years ago, Sid set Richard and I a battlefield challenge to explore what happened around the town of Best during Market Garden. And what we had previously thought of as a sideshow, and actually tends to be treated as such in many books, suddenly becomes truly fascinating. And by the way, if you haven't watched our YouTube video on that battlefield tour, then I point you towards Sydney's Battlefield Challenge on the TooFatLardies YouTube channel. And of course, amidst all these, it just isn't possible to drive over Nijmegen Bridge without whistling the tune to A Bridge Too Far. I defy anyone to do that. But there is one more place as well, and you might argue that this is a bit of a cheat. But there are few battlefields so special as standing between the decks of HMS Victory, preserved so wonderfully in dry dock at Portsmouth, and only a short drive for so many of us. However, I think though that one of the most eye-opening visits we had was to Vossenac and the Cowal Trail, scene of such fierce fighting on the edge of the Hurtgen Forest in 1944. Richard and I did this in company with our good friend Noddy about 5 years ago, and walking that hill and wooded terrain gave a superb feel of the difficulties of waging war in that environment, something that you just could not pick up from a book. Plus, of course, like so many of these events are, it was all washed down with great food, great company, and a significant amount of local beer. Inspiring stuff, and I can't wait for a time when we can once again pack up our maps in our old kit bags and walk the ground once more.